All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I am so excited to be here with Brian from AmaWaterways for us to discuss the amazing AmaWaterways cruise lines and the rivers that they take us to. So I kind of wanted to we have 10 questions that we're going to be asking AmaWaterways today with Brian to kind of just get an overview of our amazing cruise line that we have here today and where we can take them on the waters. So welcome, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you, Sydney. I appreciate it very, very much indeed. The chance to, I always like the chance to talk about AmaWaterways as I've been with them now, 7.5 years. I've been in the cruise industry over 30 years, actually. And whenever I say that, oh my gosh, what this the old time flies. But love selling rivers. Absolutely enjoy the heck out of that. And so thank you for inviting me.
Of course, yeah. Not to make it sound even more, I am 32, so you've been doing it as long
Oh
as I'm
boy.
alive.
Yikes. Yeah. Good for you. I think I have hoodies that old in my closet.
But they're
So
probably your favorites, so
that's correct. I still have them. Yeah.
perfect. So what is just like a quick overview of Ama Waterways?
Right. So we are obviously a river cruise company. I say obviously because some river cruise companies belong to conglomerates that do a lot of other things besides river. So we're strictly a river cruise company, and we've been around since 2002. So we celebrated our 22nd anniversary back in July. One interesting thing for sure is that our founder, Rudy Schreiner, along with his wife, Christine Karst, and particularly he, is acknowledged to be both officially and anecdotally as the quote unquote godfather of North American river cruising. You kind of wonder, well, how did he get that designation? And quite frankly, it's part of the reason I wanted to come to work for AMA because of Rudy Schreiner. So Rudy, when the Rhine-Main-Danube Canal opened, and the Rhine-Main-Danube Canal, those are three rivers, that's an over 100-mile long canal in Europe that connects the Rhine to the Main River and then to the Danube River. And what that meant is that you could get on a ship in Amsterdam and not get off that ship until 2,200 miles later in the Black Sea. But it did take that canal opening. So, long story short, Rudy was very prescient in thinking, you know what, river cruising can become a thing for North Americans. So he got Uniworld, a company I used to work for. He got them going into river cruising, and then he was invited to become the first president of Viking, which we all know about. And then he helped Globus and a company called Avalon get started. So he had his DNA involved with three other river cruise lines, essentially. But of course, he didn't own any of those. So he decided to start AmaWaterways back again 22 years ago. And we're the second largest river cruise company after Viking in terms of number of ships, which we have 31 ships and go many places besides Europe as well. But that's a little bit of a nutshell. So we've been around a good long stretch. We don't advertise very much. We rely on our relationships with our travel advisor partners like you to present our product, or you present our product to your valued clients. So we do very little advertising.
That is amazing. I feel like I actually didn't know how many companies Rudy had been involved in. That is amazing. But yeah, okay. And so what about your like personal journey that kind of led you to become passionate about Ama Waterways and get you into them?
Thanks. And I should mention also our niche. I forgot to mention that our niche in the market, right? Every river ship, ocean ship company, et cetera, we have our niche that we fit into. And to my way of thinking, we are at Alma Waterways a deluxe category with certain tinges or flavors of luxury category as well, which we can get into. Yeah, my personal journey is I grew up, my dad was a pilot for United Airlines. So I had travel in my blood. My mom was a stewardess. That's what they called them back then. And they met when they were based in Chicago, got married, and so I grew up traveling. Some of my earliest memories, because my dad being a pilot, and of course we were able to, fly United Airlines, and so we traveled a lot, right? And so, with travel, boy, it gets in your blood, as I say, and you just want to keep discovering this beautiful world. There's so much and I always say that I had my in school education, the formal education being in school, but then I had my, quote unquote, real education traveling, because it is an incredible teacher when you travel. So I had that as my background. And then long story short, I was working with the airlines for Continental Airlines, actually. And then I won't tell the whole story, but I got involved with a fellow that sponsored our softball team. He was the Norwegian Cruise Line sales rep in Colorado. And he's kind of the one that spurred me on to get into sales and to cruise sales. So again, that's been over 30 years ago. And so that's kind of what happened. So I love to travel and have been, gosh, over 80 countries. But river cruising is my new, I shouldn't say new because I've been with AMA for 7.5 years. And before that, I was at Uniworld actually for 4 years. But love the rivers. Absolutely love being on rivers.
Yeah, you were talking about niche before, and I will tell you, when I think of what clients I put with AmaWaterways, it's those that enjoy luxury but don't want it to be stuffy. They really just want a good experience, but they don't feel like they have to be overdressed. They can really just, enjoy the experience, but still have those luxury touches.
Thank you for saying that because actually a term that I sometimes use in conjunction with what you're just saying now is I'll say unpretentious luxury, right? Unpretentious luxury. So indeed. And I think part of it is with being family owned by Rudy and Christine and actually Gary Murphy as well from the illustrious Murphy family that started Brendan Tours. That's another story. But nonetheless, there's a vibe, there's a certain sort of zeitgeist, if you will, on the ship that is real genuine, and that is the service levels. And that's obviously very subjective, but I think the crew sets the tone, right? It's very warm and friendly, and again, unpretentious.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking as well, because there are those that are just, you feel like you have to have your pinky up and things like that, but you're still getting the same sort of experience.
Correct. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So, what are some of your like standout experiences or signature experiences that guests just rave about when it comes to Alma Waterways?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of on the waterways, and I alluded to it here a second ago, why people keep coming back to the product because the ships they're beautiful, they're nice vessels, but quite frankly, river ships kind of all look the same because we have to fit through the same locks, right? And not a lot of people who have river cruise say per se would know that we have to fit through their locks on the rivers in Europe, right? And so those locks determine particularly the width of a ship. Believe it or not, the length of the ship is determined by bends in the river. So what sets AMA Waterways apart, and again, I alluded to this already in my opinion, and that is the warmth of the service on board, right? It's just something that you have to go and experience. The people love the staff and crew on board. The software, the hardware is nice, no question, but what brings the hardware to life is the software, which is, of course, the people on board. Some of the other hallmarks that I would say certainly fit within this notion of unpretentious luxury, but the food's really good, really, really good. And part of it is, being on a small river ship with only, say, our ships average about 140 guests, right? It's like sort of a small restaurant, if you will. So we do not literally have microwaves on board. So nothing is microwave. We have freezers, but only for ice cream, truly. Everything else is freshly sourced, right? And so that's kind of nice. So the food, and particularly, frankly, here in Northern California, we're kind of spoiled with our palates because we have wonderful food and wine, et cetera. And so people around here are pretty persnickety as far as that goes, and they constantly rave about our food. Matter of fact, several of the groups that come with us on AmaWaterways come from the wineries. I'm in Petaluma in Sonoma County. So here in Sonoma County, over in Napa County, we have pretty prestigious wineries that come, and the winemakers are guest winemakers on board. They bring some wine club members with them, and those people like good wine, no doubt about it. But guess what? They're oenophile, or as well as being oenophiles, they're foodies as well. So those wineries keep coming back again and again. And if your food wasn't up to the level that it should be, they would not return. So the food is fantastic too. And then I also like, in terms of fitness levels, we have a full-time wellness instructors on board, which is nice. So we have bikes on board that people enjoy riding, full-time wellness instructors that are there to do a variety of different classes. All of course are volitional, but the fitness instructor is not your yoga teacher in the afternoon. And by golly, he's our waiter at night too. They're just there for wellness. But so those are a few highlights, I would say. There's a long list, but those are the ones that stick out to me.
Yeah, I actually just had clients. They came back from the Magna and they said they had so much fun because the boat dropped them off at one port and they actually biked along the river and followed, and the boat picked them up later on. And so they were able to
Yeah,
bike with the boat. And I
that's
was
right.
like, I don't
I've
know if
done
I
that
could keep
myself.
up.
Yeah. I have done that, yeah. And the day that I did that, where the boat went past me, we had a little bit of a headwind coming at us on the bank, and so that was a bit challenging. So that once I caught up to the ship, the beer was about the best tasting beer I'd ever had. But and that's another hallmark, the Alma Magna, which at some point we'll talk about. But it's again sort of euphemistically referred to as a double wide, right? So we'll get into that. But that ship is quite unique.
It looks absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
Now, you talked about how there's also different destinations besides Europe. What are some like bucket list destinations that people can see with AmaWaterways? It can be Europe too, but I just know that you guys do so much more.
We do. So we are on the Mekong River, right, in Southeast Asia, incorporative of both Cambodia as well as Vietnam. And that's truly exotic for sure. And so people that go on that particular program combine a stay. So if they start in the northern part of Vietnam, they'll be up in Hanoi and combine it with a night on a beautiful ship on Halong Bay, flying down to a place called Siem Reap. But that Siem Reap is famous for having the ruins of Angkor Wat nearby. So the Sphinx, the pyramids, Machu Picchu in Peru, and Angkor Wat, those are usually the medal stand as far as archaeological ruins in the world, as far as bucket lists where people want to see. So visiting Angkor Wat before you get on the Amadara, the ship that carries about 120 guests for a 7-night cruise on the Mekong, and then you finish up in Saigon, or people still say Saigon, but it's Ho Chi Minh City. So that program is quite fascinating. And then we actually have a ship called the Zambezi Queen, which you would think, oh, that's on the Zambezi River, right? No, it's actually on the Chobe River, which actually feeds into the Zambezi River. And it's really a safari cruise. It's between Namibia and Botswana. We're on the Namibian side of the Chobe River, where we spend 4 days cruising. And the largest herd of African elephants actually are in that area. And so it is an absolutely, you say bucket list, an amazing bucket list experience. And you think, well, gee, it's only 4 nights on the Chobe River. That's true. But then we offer 7 different safari land programs in conjunction with the cruise on the Chobe River on the Zambezi Queen. And the thing is, in that particular area where there is water, obviously the animals are there because the water is there, right? So
Yeah.
there's fantastic opportunities. And we actually have smaller tenders because the ship is small enough for 28 guests. We have little smaller tenders that go out onto the river and up close with the animals. And we have land-based excursions as well. So that's pretty exotic in and of itself. And then we're on the Nile in Egypt with 2 ships, right? And then we are starting next year in March of 2025. We're the trailblazers for a new river, not a new river, but
Yeah.
a new river cruise product. The river's probably pretty old, but the Magdalena River in Colombia, over 900-mile long river. That's the longest river in Colombia. We're going to have 2 ships on the Magdalena River, the Ama Magdalena and the Ama Melodia. They only carry 64 guests each, and those programs be 7-night cruises. Barranquilla, Cartagena, Cartagena, Barranquilla. So that's pretty exciting. That's our newest exotic destination.
That sounds amazing. I will tell you that your Zambezi Queen one, you have one that combos it with a rail, like a rail package.
Lobos Rail. Yeah.
Yeah, that was on my bucket list. Like, I don't know if that's going to be 26 or 27, but you will see me on it, I
Yeah.
promise.
That I met some people the other day at an event that had done that. And I guess Rovos Rail, if people have heard of sort of the Orient Express in Europe, it's that experience in South Africa. It's harkening back to the classic age of travel that you can still at certain junctures be able to take advantage of, and Rovos Rail is one of those. And so that's quite fantastic as well. Good,
Yeah.
good choice.
Yeah. I have expensive tastes.
Yes, you do.
So, describe like a typical guest on one of your cruise. And I know that changes all the time.
Does, but one interesting thing in terms of our demographics, because sometimes, candidly, river cruising is thought to be for, quote unquote, older people, but Our median age, we have the youngest median age in the river sector. So our median age is 58. So
Okay.
58 meaning half our guests are younger and half our guests are older, right?
Yeah.
So we do attract then, relatively speaking, compared to our competition out there, a typically younger audience as far as that goes. And they're well traveled typically. They are also, generally speaking, have decent household income, although, in 75,000, 100,000 plus in that range. They are also people that are into learning about the culture, because river cruising is very much a cultural immersion. We're
Right.
not selling the ship as the destination. And oh, by the way, you're going to see some interesting things along the way. We're exactly the opposite. We're here to have you travel through the country. And we like to say ocean cruises take you to countries, river cruises actually take you through them, right? And so we have people that very much are into that experience in terms of cultural immersion. And also, these are folks that are typically into history as well. They may have some European heritage possibly as well that they might be interested in pursuing. Also into fitness typically, because we have the bikes and the fitness instructors on board that, it's not that they're going to be going there mainly to work out, but just to have that opportunity to be able to do that kind of thing. Plus our ships have pools on board as well. And so every company out there, we're all after the baby boomers. There's 78 million baby boomers, right? That's a huge segment of the market. I'm one of them.
Yeah.
And so we're all trying to attract, the boomers. But then we also do, this is interesting, Disney is our largest charter customer. So they don't have river ships, right? And yet they know they need to have river in their portfolio with their company Adventures by Disney, because they certainly put people on their ocean ships. But again, with the popularity of river cruising, Disney is knowing that they need that product. So they mystery shopped every river cruise line, and they came knocking on our door and said, "We want you. We like your level of service, your food, this, that, and the other." So that was a nice feather in our cap to have Disney come to us and say, we want a charter from you. So I'm getting at the age thing, because their charters, they tend to attract a younger audience, right? On the charters that they do. Interestingly enough, we do have extended families. So we welcome extended families. And that's been a hit, particularly after the pandemic, when families were maybe not necessarily getting together. So we do take kids as young as 4 years old. So Disney played a part in our ships having triples and quads and connecting staterooms, because 20 of their charters, it's families. 10 of their charters is adults only, which is interesting. But nonetheless, they have an impact on our median age as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a millennial and I have gone on trips with friends of mine. And once they've done a river cruise, they are like, I don't want to travel any other way. It's an amazing way to travel. And it is marketed to an older demographic. So when I tell people who are my age who want to travel, I said, hey, you know, a lot of people on board are going to be older, but you can explore on your own. You have tours that you can go to, but you are just able to be in the city and explore everything. You're there super long, which is another great thing about river cruising,
Yeah,
is you arrive early and you stay late. And sometimes even have overnights. Like
that's right.
I sent my friend on, a river cruise and they did an overnight in Vienna. And so he went bar hopping all night and didn't get back to the ship till like 3 a.m.
Right. That can be done as long
That's
as
not
you get
me.
back to the ship. But the one thing about a river ship is you can always catch up to the ship. It's not like it's
That's true.
heading out to sea and that's it. You're done. But yeah, for sure. And the nice thing too, we say that every day is a sea day versus a sea day, SEE versus SEA,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
you're always, there's always something to see on shore. Plus, you're always in the heart of the destination, because these villages, and some places are villages that you visit, or towns or larger cities, they all emanated. They all literally started on the river and grew from the river. So wherever you pull in, you're right in the heart of the destination, which is really, really convenient. Very nice.
And I think my next question kind of flows in perfectly. What does a day look like on a river cruise for those who haven't done one before?
Yeah. So a typical day, you'll the evening prior, you will have gone to hear a talk by the cruise manager about what's upcoming in the next few ports. So you kind of have an idea. What's nice is all the excursions are included at AmaWaterways, right? So it's the saying, it's not how much it costs you to get on the ship, it's how much it costs you to get off the ship, right? I mean, So there are companies that generate revenue by selling excursions. That's one way of generating further revenue. We included in the price. So all of your excursions, and there's upwards of 6, 7, 8 choices a day. You might say, well, how do we learn about those and how do we pick and choose? Well, we'll give you plenty of advance notice. Sydney can help you with it as well. Our cruise managers, they're there to kind of go over all the different programs. So typically you're pulling in relatively early in the morning, and then the morning excursions that are going to go out. And what's nice too is we break up the excursions into various pace levels. So active, moderate, and a slower pace. So right off the bat, the ship's complement of guests have been broken up into smaller components, which is nice because then you're with a smaller group with your guide, right? So you then choose which particular tour, and then you're off on that tour typically for half day before choosing to either come back to the ship and have lunch on board because the food is that good. You think I'm going to come back to the ship for lunch. Some people decide to stay in the village or town and wander around on their own and do their own thing and then be back to the ship whenever they so choose. And then if you do come back to the ship for lunch, you have opportunities for that. And then there are afternoon excursions that go out as well, right? And so that's kind of nice to have that opportunity. Not everyone does 2 a day, but that is a chance to be able to do that if you'd like. And then typically the ship's going to leave either right around dinner time, 6, 7 in the evening, or as you already mentioned, often the ship will stay later into the wee hours of morning, or at the embark ports where you get on the ship and the disembark port where you get off the ship. We always do overnights there, which is very handy as it relates to flights, right? So if you, for whatever reason, your flight inbound, let's say you're just coming straight to the ship, your flight inbound's late, you don't have to worry because the ship is overnighting there on the first night and overnighting at the end point, right? So that's fairly typical day. Now, I will say in Portugal, interesting enough, it's different because Portugal, all river cruise companies have to cruise during the day. There's no nighttime cruising, right? So that's a little bit different. The other thing, too, is you're going to experience locks, right? As I said that earlier. So if you've not had the experience of been through the locks of the Panama Canal, then you'll have the experience of going through locks, certainly on the rivers of Europe. And that's an interesting experience in and of itself.
I have done both. So I did the Danube and I did the Panama Canal. And I will say, I thought the locks in on the Danube were way cooler.
They're pretty fascinating to say the least. And again, people don't realize that there's gains of altitude, like that Rhine-Main-Danube Canal I talked about earlier, being over 100 miles long. There's lots and lots of locks. You're crossing over sort of what we call the Continental Divide here in the United States. They have the same in Europe.
That is awesome. So as we kind of wrap up, what are like the upcoming destination or experiences that like AmaWaterways doing, and what's kind of in the future for you guys?
Well, I would say for us, our future is exciting in that any company, right? We want to grow. You want to grow your business. And so for us, the growth means, and I already mentioned, the 2 ships coming to the country of Colombia and the Magdalena River. So that's exciting. But we've already announced the second vessel for the Mekong River coming in 2026, the Maya, right? So that's being developed right now. And then we have new ships coming in Europe as well. Pictured behind me here, that's a twin balcony ship. And that's predominantly what we have in Europe, are what are called these twin balcony vessels. And I say twin balcony because it's one of the hallmarks of these ships in that you have 2 balconies, and one is a French balcony, which is a sliding glass door and railing. And then the other right next door to it is a traditional balcony where you can sit out there. There's a couple of chairs and a table, et cetera. And the reason we have these twin balconies is because a lot of North Americans who have done ocean cruising enjoy the balcony experience on their ocean going ships. And so they're more predisposed to book the twin balconies on these types of ships. So we have several of these new ships coming next year as well. So our capacity is increasing 25% for next year. Now, as a sales guy, I'm like, oh my gosh, that means my target's. I mean, it's exciting to grow, but then I realize you got to help me, Sydney. You got to sell cruises, But the thing they told us earlier this week on Monday is we are already 53% booked for next year, and that's with a 25% capacity increase, right? So So that is exciting. And river cruising pre-pandemic was very much one of the things in travel that was totally in vogue, really a hot thing to do. And it has rebounded tremendously well that a lot of people who have heretofore not done a river cruise are coming to try it, who maybe have done ocean cruising. And then river cruisers are repeating and going and trying all the different rivers that there are throughout the world. So I would say the growth is the exciting thing that's happening with us.
Yeah, and you know what's amazing that I think about is like I'm doing the Danube again. And you guys go to different little cities depending on the itinerary. So I'm going to like 3 or 4 new cities on a 7-day trip. And for those that I'm going to again, since you have multiple excursions, I get to see a different part. And so I'm
That's
very excited about
You
that.
hit the nail on the head. Here's another little sort of interesting factoid that maybe not everyone realizes, but we cruise 11 out of 12 months of the year. Now we finish after New Year's, our ships continue through New Year's, and then they're parked for a period of time, but then 3 or 4 of our vessels start cruising the first week of February. So to your point, every season on the rivers, the Danube, the Rhine, wherever you might be going, is unique and has its own allure in terms of what's being offered in that particular time of year. And so, yes, you can do the river again and see completely different things. And you can go seasonal wise. And of course, Christmas markets being one of the more popular things that we offer. And those are selling extremely well this year on the Rhine and Danube, in particular, going to these fabulous Christmas markets that have existed for hundreds of years. So yeah, that's cool what you mentioned about doing the river again. One perfect example is when you're in Linz, Austria on the Danube, you have to choose, are you going to go to Salzburg that day or are you going to go up to the Czech Republic to Český Krumlov? And you can't do both. So that's, I think, perfect example of coming back to try something different.
Yeah. Last time I did the Czech Republic side, and so this side I'm doing Salzburg, and so I'm very excited about that. I'm gonna watch The Sound of Music before I go.
Absolutely. You have to do that.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. Are there any like last minute facts you want to talk about? You know, we've just had an amazing conversation about AmaWaterways.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think what I would say just in general is that for folks out there that have yet to go on a river that might be, certainly watching this, it is so fantastic and so easy, so convenient as far as, and frankly, the first time I went on a river ship, having come from Princess Cruises and larger ocean going ships, I got on, I was like, this is it. This is all. But then what happens is over, at least for my first experience, I was thinking, you know what? I get it now. I see why people are drawn to these smaller ships that are traversing the rivers. You're again immersing yourself in the local culture. The food is fabulous, cooked to order, just off the hook, fantastic. And then again, speaking of cultural immersion, you have a local, quaint, colloquial entertainment coming on board. Again, further immersing you in the culture. And one thing I haven't even mentioned, we offer fantastic pre and post land programs, right?
Yeah.
So not only do you get to cruise, but you get land options pre and post, before and after the cruise in some fabulous, beautiful places. The other thing I'll mention lastly is people are also now combining rivers, right, and doing back to back. So, for example, in France, I'll just say since the Olympics, we're seeing a major halo effect in that a lot of people are more interested in France having seen the Olympics. But our ships depart every Thursday. We have 6 different itineraries in France, 6 different programs. Every Thursday, the ships depart. So a lot of people like to do back to back. So they might go do the Rhone River in Provence and then head over to Bordeaux and do Bordeaux, right? Or maybe do the Seine River up in northwest part of France and then head down to Bordeaux or over to Burgundy. So that all works out. So that's one thing to mention as well, the combo rivers that are kind of fun to do.
Yeah, no, I was looking at that one myself and there's so many rivers in so little time, Brian.
That's right. You hit the nail on the head. I know.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming today, and I can't wait to talk to you again more about AmaWaterways.
Thank you, Sydney.